very busy, congested Friday down on the beach of the Andalusian coast, and certainly has been a cracking venue for all of the action over the last 2 days and all the action that is to come as well, as we get ready for the elites over the next few days to perhaps take the headlines. But it's the chance of these young men that have the opportunity to write their names into Junior World Championship history. And for one of these men, an opportunity to take home a gold medal from Spain this weekend. You join us here on triathlonlive.tv with myself, Oliver Wilson, and alongside me, of course, the former Olympian Gillian Sanders, taking you through all the action. Now, we have had plenty of action today. We've only just had a chance to rest and recover from the thrilling finale of the Women's Junior Championship. The men, then, we've got a lot to live up to in terms of entertainment and excitement. Yeah, that was an incredibly exciting women's junior race. Fantastic racing by those young athletes, putting on such a spectacle. And yeah, if that was anything to go by, I'm really looking forward to this men's race here today. You can just see some of our athletes getting mentally prepared there. That's Osvaldo Dorelgo Zuniga Fiera of Mexico, just having a moment before the race. Hey, like a number of the athletes in this field, only a real handful of starts to their name in terms of on the World Triathlon stage. There are some who've only even had single-figure starts, the likes of Blake Bullard, the American. Only 5 starts to his name, but 5th in Americans Cup in Barbados back in March earlier this year. As we can take a look at the course map, that these juniors will be making their way around 750 metres out there in the water. Just one lap of the course out there in the water as they make the turn around. The 4 boys come back to the beach through some slightly choppier waters than we've had earlier this week, and out onto the bike. 20 kilometres, 4 laps of this twisting and turning, tight at times, and certainly technical bike course that still has plenty of power as well. And those long straights, the opportunity for those with a bit of a spring in their step to put the hammer down on the bike. And then we get to the 2 laps, making up the 5-kilometre run of this sprint triathlon along a blustery coastline here in Torremolinos. And of course, the blue carpet awaits the victor, and to the victor go the spoils. This is the start list. Then there are 2 names at the top of the pile, Rhys Vanderson and João Nuno Batista, to certainly dig your teeth into. But there are plenty in this field that will fancy their chances of competing, including a man that has gone toe-to-toe with João Nuno Batista in championships in the past. Gillian, I know you've had an eye on the Frenchman who makes the number 17 swim cap his today. Yeah, he hasn't raced a lot this year. Had that second in Hamburg last year to João Nuno Batista, and was also second to João Nuno Batista at the European Sprint Junior Championships, not too long ago. So that rivalry between those 2 athletes continues here today, and I'm sure we're in for some exciting racing. Do not underestimate those further down the field. There's always an expectation from the British field. Oliver Conway included in that, and the late addition as well of Portomido, the American, the late addition after Braxton Legg. Unfortunately, his fellow countryman who would have been sporting the number 24 cap has had to drop out of today's event. Is it about the top 2 though in this field, Gillian? The people wearing swim caps number 1 and 2, Rhys Vanderson, and of course, as we touched on already, the Portuguese athlete João Nuno Batista. Yeah, I think our athletes ranked number 1, 2, and 17, they are our standout athletes. Rhys Vanderson, João Nuno Batista, Nils Serigeri. The results recently speak for themselves. These are on-form athletes. We know Rhys Vanderson and João Nuno Batista, they have raced quite a lot on the elite circuit at the moment, the last few months, having put down some really respectable results amongst the elite men. And these are junior athletes, so that just shows the pedigree of Rhys Vanderson and João Nuno Batista. So they will be hard to beat today. Yeah, and you look at them as we see the temperatures, 26 degrees now, the air temperature rising throughout the day as the afternoon just seeming to get warmer and warmer as we move into early evening, and the water temperature staying at around about 19 degrees. Wetsuits will be required then for the athletes. But just going back to that, Rhys Vanderson and João Nuno Batista, they are the 2 that, even if you're just looking at not just swim caps 1 and 2, but you look at the world rankings of these 2, you can see the impression that they're making already because of those strong performances in the elite men's racing categories in the America's Cup and European Cup stages, 127th and 147th in the world. You look at the next highest ranked athlete in this field, Vinicius Avi Santana, the Brazilian wearing the number 3 cap. He is ranked 258th in the world coming into this one. So there's over 100 ranking spots between our top 2 wearing numbers 1 and 2 and the rest of the field, and you already get to kind of rank 500s or so in the world when you get into our mid-20s here today. That's not to say that everybody from 15th and below is completely out of the equation. That's not the way things will work here this afternoon, the Junior World Championships, as the officials get set to take their place and keep their watchful eye over everything down there on the seafront, and of course out there on the bike as well, and across the road circuit, the technical staff, along with the number of volunteers that we've seen today, particularly during the para event as well earlier this morning. Just fantastic, as well as the support that has come from the sidelines. And I tell you what, that water is looking a little more treacherous than we've seen at all over the last couple of days. It's going to be a tough swim indeed, particularly with the wind continuing to whip around the waters, which is why, unfortunately, here we have had to bring our drone down out of the sky. You can just see that French flag just billowing in the background of that camera shot there, just showing how much the wind is swirling around this place. It's kicking up a storm. Thankfully, there are no storm clouds on the horizon, but as I say, we are apparently going to be without the cracking shots that we've seen over the last couple of days or so that really gives a chance to take in the whole of this spectacle from a high vantage point, thanks to the drone footage we've been able to bring you. That has been ruled out of the equation for our coverage of the junior women and the junior men's finals here today. Takes nothing away from the spectacle on the eyes, though, that we'll get to bring you, and certainly we'll do our best to keep you up to date with everything that is going on out there on the course, across the swim, bike, and of course the 5-kilometer run to finish it. And look, it's going to be a frantic one again, isn't it? This sprint triathlon, there's no real room for error, no room for mistakes. The transition becomes even more important than it already is, and everything else that goes on in between as well. You can really drop off by only a 30-second mark or so if you're one of the stronger runners going into the final third of the triathlon. Everybody wants to be right up on the front as much as possible, and Reece Vanderson wants to lead from the front wearing the number 1 and lead from the get-go right until the blue carpet finish.
Yeah, and I think, you know, those challenging swim conditions are going to play a role. We can see how choppy it is out there. We can see there's a little bit of a current. So I think that's going to favor our stronger swimmers. It's going to be certainly a challenging one for the athletes in the water today. There's a long run up the beach to T1. That's going to be really important, these athletes getting those wetsuits off as quickly as possible. They do have a long run up the beach to do that. Then a flat technical bike, a little bit of a climb up to that dead turn. But yeah, we've seen in the previous races have been some breakaways, and then that really flat, fast run along the beachfront to cap things off.
Well, if it's going to be a tough swim, you can probably expect to see the number 20 of Martin Kropko perhaps being one of those that is able to tough it out the best. A phenomenal athlete in the water, a great aquathlon eventer as well, the European Junior and Under-23 champion last year on his resume. He will be making his way down to the beach along with everybody else. Vinicius Avi Santana, the third one to make his way out and take his position down on the beachfront. Benjamin Ayri, Takuto Oshima, the Japanese representative, Osvaldo Dario Zuniga Fierro, the Mexican, Zuru Zhang from China, Carol Popper, the Romanian as well. Not often we see the Romanian team so highly ranked up on a start sheet, and one of those who's actually got a wealth of experience compared to a lot of the other athletes in this field. 5th place in the Balkan Championships in October, coming into this event will give him a fair bit of confidence, Carol Popper, and certainly one that experience can pay you back in spades if you use that experience well, I suppose, in these sorts of events.
Yeah, he's got a lot of experience, a lot of junior races behind him. Had a 7th at the European Sprint Juniors just recently, so he's coming into this race in good form. You can see some of our remaining athletes in the silver swim caps just going out onto the starting carpet. That's our athletes ranked 11 to 20 wearing the silver swim caps, and then we'll move on to our athletes ranked 21 to 30 wearing the red swim caps.
Yeah, We just saw Henry Bristol, the Canadian 8th at the Junior American Championships in Miami earlier this year. Neil Seragiri, as Gillian's touched on already, one to keep an eye on. You just see there Blake Bullard down there, 5 starts to his name, wearing the number 10, and not many have chosen to take that middle spot, particularly in the yellow swim caps, although Isla Watson, the Australian, certainly chose that sort of position on the beach for her start earlier today. Depends whether you back yourself or not to make good headway when you've got so many around you if you're starting in the centre, and if you can lead from the centre and have everybody else funnel into your position and command it. Got to have some cojones to imagine that you can do that from the centre of the pack.
Yes, so it looks like Vanison just deciding to start on the left side as we look at the starting platform. It looked like he had Takuta Oshima as well on that side of the platform with him, so that probably means that the likes of Jean-Nuno Baptiste have gone to the right-hand side.
We saw as well as they came around the boys in the Women's Junior World Championship a few hours ago, wide berth that the field seemed to take around the final turn before making their way back. There may just be a current out there that's pushing some of those athletes a little further out than they would necessarily want to be. It may just be the way that that group held together, and it just encouraged everybody to take a slightly wider line around the final turns in the swim. Either way, it's not the most dramatically tight turn. So you see the boys up there in the distance, and we will do our best to try and work out who will be leading them through as soon as we can. But as I say, if it is a silver swim cap, I would be happy to have a bet that it's Martin Kropko who will be the one who will try and assert his dominance on this swim as fast as he can. I tell you what, it's been a good World Championships weekend so far for Hungary, that's for sure. If Kropko can add to their medal tally, he'll be going back with a very happy team crew.
Just seeing our athletes in the purple swim caps, 51 to 60, making their way onto the blue starting carpet. And not many more places left on the carpet there. A very large men's field, 70 athletes. The start field is absolutely full at capacity at 70 athletes.
It's not very often we get swim caps going into the 70s. Normally finish off with the orange swim caps at 61 to 70. And in fact, I think we were struggling to remember exactly what colour it would be for those wearing the 71 and 72. Zelen Tungelnagi of Hungary and Porter Midau of America filling up those last 2 spaces.
And just our on-the-ground commentator calling out number 68. So we have nearly all of our 70 men on this blue carpet.
It's about finding that last bit of space down there on the beach to pick your place, pick your poison about where you want to go. So our final 2 athletes take their spot. This is the last moment just to wait out. There is a junior world champion stood there on this beach, and not even they know it just yet. But in around about 60 minutes time or so, someone will be draped in gold. Couple of shakes from those on the seafront. Some just a touch too eager to get going, but we are underway. It's Winston Churchill that said we'll fight them on the beaches. It's certainly be a battle to get back to the beachfront first at the end of the 750-metre swim. and the best opportunity to get out on the bike and find some separation from the rest of the pack. We saw that earlier today in the junior women's sprint race. We didn't see it in the under-23 World Championship races yesterday. The bikes left everybody all bunched up. But it has been the swim today that has given the opportunity for some to stretch out the field touch and find some space. And we'll wait to see as they start to make their way out to the boys just exactly who can push the tempo first and earliest in the water and find that important point of separation that just makes life even more easier for you when the seas are slightly choppy, and of course there's a difficult wind into the face that they have to deal with as well as they come back to shore after making the turn.
Yeah, really big field of men, but like you said, Ollie, we've got quite a long distance out to that first turn, boy. Bit of a gentle arc that makes up the turnaround. Just one lap for these junior athletes here today, 750 meters. There is one of our athletes in the yellow swim caps there. One of our athletes ranked number 1 to 10. Yeah, like we mentioned, unfortunately unable to fly our drones today, so a little bit hard to identify those numbers in the water. We had some beautiful shots in the under-23 races yesterday. The drones are up, beautiful morning. Yeah, but unfortunately there's high winds, so some challenging conditions out there for our junior athletes. I see quite a lot of the athletes look like they're heading off a little bit to the left-hand side there.
Yeah, there is also going to be the case that we have the sun now. It's started to make its way around the other side of the bay, and from this angle it turns everybody into almost a silhouette, which makes it even more difficult to pick out the numbers on the side of the swim caps. And we appreciate the cameramen out in the boats are bringing us the best of the close-up action. It still makes it rather tough to be able to work out who is leading. We may end up having to wait until the time splits. It could well be a number 7 or perhaps a number 2 of João Nuno Batista on the side of that yellow swim cap. Or it could be Zuri Zhang of China as well.
I think that is number 2. I think that's João Nuno Batista, and we would expect to see him up at the front of the swim. Like we mentioned, he's raced quite a lot on the elite circuits. He is still a junior athlete, still very young, but he's made his mark in the elite ranks. So he's able to keep up pace on the elite swim, so no surprise to see him right up there at the front of the swim.
Yeah, certainly one of the elite athletes out of Portugal, the Portuguese national champion, the junior sprint champion last year in Hamburg as well.
And I think that's a blue swim cap, number... Oh, I don't know if that was blue. I thought it was number 30, but that should be our athletes in red. So I'm not colorblind, I do promise. But our number 30 athlete is Achille Benson of France. So yeah, that number did look like number 30. So possibly one of our French athletes up there.
As I say, we will do our best. In the meantime, I'm very grateful to say that our DJ down on the beachfronts continue to play out some of the best classic rock to be an accompanying soundtrack for the action today here in Torremolinos. AC/DC and Led Zeppelin seem to be the order of the day, as in the meantime we can see the Portuguese athlete João Nuno Batista leading them through around the first turn. Could well be a 38 of Sebastian Ignacio Colilanca Uribe of Chile.
You can see they've now rounded that first boy. Quite a lot of congestion towards the end, mid to end of the pack there. The athletes at the front, much more strung out, clearer water, and that's where you would ideally want to be. But that's much easier said than done. Those are our strongest swimmers.
In fact, I think it might be a 39 of Gregor Rasva, who is on the coattails of the Portuguese athlete as they finally come round into vision as we get the sun the right side of the cameras, and you can see, yeah, it's the Portuguese athlete wearing the number 2, Batista, and the number 39 of Rasva, the Estonian.
Yeah, Rasva's had some really strong results lately. A second in Malta at the Salini European Cup, and 2 first places in some other junior European Cups not too long ago. So coming into this race in some really good form, the athlete from Estonia. And then it's number 45, I think, sitting in 3rd place there.
Yeah, Roy Baron of Israel could easily be at 46 as well. We'll try and confirm everything to you. And the main number you need to know, though, is the person in 1st place, that number 2 right now. And I imagine he wants to stay there from start to finish, which would be a mightily impressive thing to do. No way he's surely going to lead every single lap of the bike. He and others out of the front will have to work hard to try and find some separation from away from the field, but they're making that turn back towards home already, and it is the Israeli Roy Baron who's joined the front three, just hanging off those two right down at the front. There's a couple of orange caps right up there in the thick of things as well. In the middle of the field, Martin Kropko is there as well, the swim cap in silver, the number 20, I think it is, just in around about 5th place right now.
Yeah, and two of our orange swim caps, those are athletes 61 to 70. So our leader, João Nuno Batista, Portugal, and right on his feet, Gregor Rasfa, our Estonian athlete. As they head back into shore, they've rounded that last buoy and they'll be making their way back towards the beach.
Once again, just talking about Batista and the accolades, 11th at the European Championships in Vichy in France this year. That's not 11th in the juniors or anything like that, that's 11th with the elite men. So if you're one of the top 11 athletes in Europe right now, World Triathlon, the juniors, well, it's never going to be easy. But you can understand why he is considered one of the favourites coming into this. He has the form right now and he has the talent against some of the best. Don't look away though from Rhys Vanderson. We'll have to see how far back he's dropped in this swim and if he's been caught up in the cluster of bodies back there. But a 7th in the World Cup in Valencia in September.
You just see Martin Kropko in the silver swim cap closest to the camera here, powering through the water.
Taking a slightly wider berth than everybody else, but there's nothing wrong with blazing a trail on your own as long as it's a trail that is sustainable.
I think we had Alex Robin of Great Britain as well, number 69 in that one of those orange swim caps, based out in Scotland, really strong swimmer.
Batista trying to find a bit of his own separation, but look at the work that Kropko's doing just to come up alongside them, and he is gliding through the water on his own.
Yeah, Kropko started, I think, towards the middle of the pontoon, so he might have had a little bit of congestion heading into the water. Now just finding some clear water and choosing his own direct path towards the beach.
It's interesting to know if he's taken the wide berth to then arrow straight towards that exit point down on the beach, whereas others who've taken that inside line have ended up having to funnel in slightly. And Kropko, look at the gap between him and everybody else away to his right. You hope he's not going too far wide at all, as we'll get a look when they start to get closer and back to the exit point before they make their way across the beach and over into the transition area.
He's got a really smooth open water style there. You can see he just lifts his head up, sighting through the chop, looking towards the beach, just having a check to see where he's going. Raspa, on the other hand, just sighting off the feet of Batista in front of him. Batista leading this 750-meter swim.
Kropko just lifts out of the water, almost getting all of his torso out of the water at times as he carves his way through the waves. This leading group of around about 5 athletes or so certainly have found some distance between themselves and the rest, but it is all strung out behind them in a very neatly, almost coordinated row behind the leader, Batista.
Yeah, Roy Barron and Alex Robin just tucked in there as well. And a little bit of a gap towards one of the other athletes wearing our orange swim caps, 61 to 70.
You see what I mean about that angle that Kropko's taken? He's got wide early and everybody else is going to have to filter in towards his path and take a slightly less direct route, as Kropko's going to perhaps catch up with now the front two as that happens. Fastest route is in a straight line and Kropko's going to be right alongside the leaders as they come out of the water, but first out of the water will be one of the favourites, the Portuguese man, Batista. Kropko and Co following in hot pursuit. The first 7 have a slight advantage over the rest of the field, but the rest of the field is coming up quickly. So it's Batista, Kropko, Rasfa, Baron and Alex Robin of Great Britain making the top 5 out of the water. Then a 4-second gap, Enco de Castro, Sidivela of Spain, making up 6th. Lasse Rohrbeck of Germany, 7th. Ries Vannessen right up there, 8th, 12 seconds off the leader coming out of the water. A superb swim, though, from Batista, and no surprise to see Kropko right up there with the leaders out of the swim.
Yeah, I think importantly, Vannessen is in contact, 12 seconds back. Nils Serigeri, 14 seconds back. So they're there at the moment. They're in contact. There's going to be a really crucial transition for them. But the small group, a little bit of a time gap, and then that big pack looming behind.
And if you can be quick in this small group and get out and away before the majority of that big pack comes in, you see Baron then just struggling slightly to get out of the wetsuit, a little, an extra shake of the leg or two before getting out onto the bike. But if you can be quick and avoid the throng of bodies that are coming down the blue carpet right now, it's really going to be beneficial. And it certainly seems that João Nuno Batista has been able to do exactly that, as he's first in and first out of transition and straight onto the bike. But there are some busy bodies behind him that are going to come with him in a group of around about 6 that are going to make up the leading group out onto the bike, and they'll hope to try and find some distance between themselves and everybody else as they come out of transition 1.
Yeah, Batista Rasfer of Estonia, Roy Baron of Israel, Alex Robin and Martin Kropko and Eneko de Castro Cataviela. Those athletes a little bit clear. I think 8 seconds is the gap then to our group behind, which contains the likes of Nils Serigeri, Ries Vannessen, etc.
So there's some work to be done. Vannessen dropping 4 positions through transition and a couple of seconds as well. Nils Serigeri rising up 3 spots or so just to get through transition and coming out in 8th place as the leaders make their way out onto the bike.
Just see Batista really pushing the pace on the front. You won't want that massive group of athletes behind. Ideally, a smaller group. We saw in the women's race, it was ideal with a group of 4 athletes making that breakaway. They managed to stay clear for the entire duration of the bike. One of the athletes dropped off, Yves Whittaker, unfortunately couldn't keep up with the pace, but yeah, really good sized group, and they worked really well together.
Get the feeling that Roy Baron may be finding himself in that similar sort of position, as a few of them coming from the rear to join up with the lead group, as Baron is struggling with the pace right up at the front, and one of those is the Frenchman Nils Serigeri.
Lang of Luxembourg as well, just heading around the athletes struggling to get onto those leaders.
This is the front 5. The next 2 are the Frenchman and the man from Luxembourg, and then Baron perhaps is going to be falling back into the clutches of those behind, and we'll hope that the chasing pack can engulf him and everybody else. But that's not exactly what João Nuno Batista wants to see right now as they make their way up on the very short climb on this bike circuit. First lap of 4 off and under away, and this is the tightest turn of the whole of the bike circuit. There's a 180-degree hairpin turn that will bend them round. I wouldn't like to be in a really large group taking that corner. It also is the only time that we see a number of the athletes just getting out of the saddle slightly, just if they need to add a bit more tempo into their bike, just to be able to stay with those that are pushing up the hill a touch more. And one of those is João Nuno Batista, who leads them back down the hill, with Martin Kropko right alongside him as the chasing pack are only just making their way around the 180-degree turn.
And Francis Serra now safely in that front group as well. Just was cycling on the back of that group behind David Lang of Luxembourg.
So I'm going to ask you to bring out your inner Nostradamus here, Gillian. Does this lead group of 5 or so, do they find that separation, do you think, for the majority of the bike, or do you think they end up getting brought in by the pack? Are the cyclists in this group strong enough to be able to pull themselves away from the rest of the field?
I would say they are strong enough. Batista's one of the strongest cyclists there, so if he can make sure that those athletes around him are motivated to work. Alex Robin is a very strong cyclist as well, the athlete from Great Britain. We know he's a really solid swimmer biker, has had a bit of a run injury, so we're not sure about his run. So I'm sure he will be wanting to push the swim and the bike as hard as possible. Yeah, so he does have some men around him who would be willing to help.
It's always harder to drag on a larger group, isn't it, for the leading athletes? In terms of the more that arrive and join up with the field, the more difficult it is to find those opportunities to break away and splinter off even more. It's hard to make a group of 8, for instance, become a group of 3 and a group of 5.
Yeah,
it's easy for that group of 8 to get slowed down almost by each other.
Yeah, and if you look at the time splits, there is a smaller group of 3 athletes dangling between the 2 groups. We've got Achille Benson of France, Derry McCluskey, and Andreas Nikolaisen of Denmark. So they're only 6 seconds behind the lead group, and they are desperate to try and get onto that group. You then have the group with Rhys Vannison. They further, I think, about 10 seconds back. They're sitting 20 seconds behind the leaders at the moment.
So here is our lead group, snaking their way through the streets of Torremolinos. 7 athletes out at the front. Strong 7, but 7 that could easily be whipped away as there are more arriving on the back, and that chase group of 3 that you were talking about, Gillian, is making good headway. It's not a good sign for the front 7 either, that they can be so easily caught if they feel that perhaps the rest of the pack is right behind them as well.
Yeah, strong riding by the Dane and the Brit. I think it's one of our other French athletes, although we can't see him in shot there. He might have dropped off after the last time check. We've definitely got Nikolaisen of Denmark and Derry McCluskey there of Great Britain.
They've almost done enough to get themselves up with the front 7 to make it a front 9 or 10.
Yeah, McCluskey had a breakaway in Quatera at the European Cup earlier on in the year, so we know he's solid on the bike, and he might want to make a few fireworks happen at the front end of this bike, so he'll be happy to join up with this front group.
Fireworks would be certainly what we want to see in terms of entertainment. The last thing we'd want to see is a big group of maybe 25, 30 athletes just slowly having to navigate their way around the what can be at times, including this corner right here as they make the right turn to then go down towards the beachfront. Be quite a narrow and potentially treacherous bike circuit. And you have these big wide open areas as well where there's plenty of passing opportunity, plenty of opportunities for the groups to expand out and get bigger. They will have to filter back in again though when they get to these sorts of positions.
These are chasers. See 2 German athletes in that group. That's Simler and Rohrbeck are in there. It's making their way down towards the beach. Would have completed one of the 4 laps. 15 kilometers left of this 20-kilometer bike.
Yeah, there's basically the distance of the Avenue La Riviera between the lead group and the chase group, round about that. I haven't stepped it out myself personally this week in terms of knowing the exact meters, but it's a fair few seconds, that's for sure. You can tell that by the fact that the chase group are just going around that corner in the rear right now.
And it was 20 seconds to the next group at the last time check, so we'll get a bit of a check now, be able to see whether that has gone out or not.
It's down to 24 seconds. So extra bit of time has been added on to the case then as the front 10 look to maintain a pace that will see them ideally, in their eyes, I imagine, try and double that advantage before the end of this bike. It's going to require a lot of effort from all 10 of them though to ensure that they can maintain their pace.
Yeah, and just to mention Achille Besson, the Frenchman, he actually is in that front group as well. So I think he actually joined that group before McCluskey and Nikolaisen got on. He's sitting there in that front group as well. So we have 2 of our French athletes up there in that group, Gary and Besson.
Certainly breeding them differently right now, the French athletes, in terms of their ability and success right now on the World Triathlon stage. Could be more to come as well this World Championship weekend for France, if all things go their way. Easier said than done, however.
Castro Catavila of Spain, one of our local athletes, ranked 70th coming into this event. Had a second at a Junior Cup in Melilla earlier on in the year. Hasn't raced too much internationally. Finds himself right at the front of this race on home soil. It's a great opportunity for him.
And those local athletes that we always see you get a strong following and strong support, particularly when it matters in the key moments down the final straights, and obviously when they get back towards the end of these laps and down into transition. It does give you a huge motivation. I mean, you even hear amateur athletes talking about it when they run marathons and do endurance races on bikes, etc. Just having that crowd noise behind you and spurring you on, it can give you a few extra seconds if needed, can't it?
Yeah, you can just find something extra. I mean, I don't think David Cantera del Campo needed to find anything extra in that under-23 race yesterday with that incredible performance, but but yeah, it does certainly lift your performance racing at home. Yeah, an athlete who will be disappointed to have not made that group is Rhys Vanassen, our #1 ranked athlete heading into this race, and he finds himself in that chase group 25 seconds back.
I just got a penalty coming up on the screens there for Oliver Conway, a 10-second penalty for a violation for the British athlete Roy Barron as well. The Israeli athlete's been handed a 10-second penalty as well. I just wonder if they've been involved in anything incidental down there on the track, but they're in that chase group, around about 24 seconds, 26 seconds adrift of the leaders.
Yeah, and they'll have to serve that penalty on the run. There's only 2 laps, obviously, to serve the penalty. They can choose whether they want to serve it on the first or the second lap of the run.
It becomes more and more pivotal, doesn't it, in the shorter races, if you have to stand there for 10 seconds and wait and watch everybody else going past you and getting 10 seconds down the road before you then have to burst back into life again.
Bieler of Chile and Rohrbeck of Germany just falling off the back of this chase group.
Not much movement up at the front, however. Kropko, the one who's continuing to lead them round this second lap of the bike circuit, the Hungarian. Another one who's got a huge wealth of race experience compared to a lot of the other starters in this group. Kropko, 46 starts to his name, 18 podiums and 6 wins.
Yeah, some really positive results for him this year on the junior circuit. I think he's had 3 podium places in European Cups. Like we've mentioned already, he is the World Junior Triathlon Champion from 2023. And he'll be hoping to improve upon his 24th place in Hamburg at the Junior Championships last year.
He's just relinquished that position at the front of the field, allowing McCluskey to take over. Chase group just having perhaps a couple of stragglers falling off the back. Just saw that it was Finley Oliver, I think it was, who was starting to fall away at the back of that pack. The athlete from New Zealand have to work hard as, again, look at Kropko, he's taking his own line, both in the bike and out there in the water that we saw earlier. Moving himself back towards the front again, and I think he's one who's trying to push the tempo out on this bike quite a lot.
Yeah, quite strung out, so you can see the pace is on. Back with one of our chase groups. That's an athlete from New Zealand.
Yeah, I think that's Finley Oliver. Again, he's just still staying on the rear of that chase group, just about hanging tough, so to speak, to stick with them.
Still sitting 24 seconds back, that chase group. So our chases are 11th through to 22nd. So a group of 11 athletes in that chase group.
As the leaders make their way down the second to last straight before making the final right-hand turn back onto the waterfront once again. Interesting to see. You saw Kropko just looking around at some of the other faces in the group as well, not just those that have joined him up at the front, but some of the others. And I think he's trying to air on a bit of encouragement for everybody else to motivate and keep this pace going.
Yeah, there's probably 4 or 5 athletes taking the load of the work in the group.
Oh, we got a fall there.
Oh.
That was at the tight turn. And that's the British athlete out up at the front, and that's Derry McCluskey, I think, who's come a cropper, unfortunately. We said that there are some tight turns. It might be Alex Robin as well, actually. We'll try and get confirmation of that as they go through the splits, but both of those two athletes right up there for Team GB in this leading pack. But we did say that right-hand turn on that second to last straight, just at the top of the La Riviera Avenue, is where it gets very tight and you don't want to be in a big group, and that's exactly what's happened to one of the British athletes.
Really lucky that no other men went down with him and managed to all seem to have got back together again. It would have rattled them a bit. We'll try and identify which British athlete that was.
It's Alex Robin, I think, because Derry McCluskey's gone through the number 66, and Alex Robin is now 19 seconds back, the man wearing the number 69, and he's the one that's had that nasty fall, albeit it's one of the slowest corners and the slower sections, so at least there's a lot less speed in his body as he came off the bike, but he might now have to settle to falling back with the rest of the chasers that's still only 24 seconds back, so there's no extra advantage has been gained by that leading group over that last lap or so. So everybody else in terms of the leading group slightly further back is going to still be in fairly much contention, the top 22.
And it looks like he is back on his bike, Alex Robin, so that's really good news. He hasn't injured himself. He's now sitting 19 seconds back with that chase group just behind, sitting 24 seconds behind the leaders at the moment.
It's a tough position, really, for the Brit to think about, well, do I try and close down the gap once again on the leaders? That's probably getting a little too far, particularly on your own. Instead, might have to encourage others up at the front of the chase pack to say, look, you're staying with the leading group. I should know, I was up with them.
Yeah,
now we need to close that gap from 24 that's been sustained and get it down to about 15 seconds or so.
Yeah, it all depends how battered his body is as well. I mean, he's jumped back on his bike, but he'll probably have a bit of a better idea of whether he's actually injured or not injured. If the bike's still working, he can shift through all the gears, everything's still working or not. And obviously there would have been a massive adrenaline surge as well when you crash like that. So that does sap the energy too. So yeah, hopefully he's able to continue and finish this race, but he'll probably find himself swallowed by that chase group.
May have just scuppered his race for this afternoon. Couldn't see if there was any contact or if it was just him getting all of his weight on the wrong side of the bike and it's slipping out underneath him on that tight turn, maybe taking a bit too much momentum into the corner. I'm sure there'll be a discussion afterwards about it. We will find out from Alex in the aftermath of these Junior World Championships. So 10 becomes 9 at the front, and in rather dramatic fashion. And it's the usual suspects that are leading them through once again. Batista, Kropko, McCluskey, and Sarah Gerry, all up there. This is the chase group.
Chase is led through by Zelan Trangelnagi. Vanison in that group.
The New Zealander still is just off the rear, fighting so hard, Oliver, to be able to stay with this chase group.
Yeah, he's just dangling off the back there, makes contact and then seems to just fall off a little bit on those technical sections. French athletes up towards the front as well. A distinctive group, like we mentioned, of about 4 or 5 athletes taking the load of the work there. Kelly Benson leading them through that last time check.
Amazing to think we've only had 29 minutes already and they're making their way through the third lap of 4 here. It's a blistering pace that's being put down in this sprint triathlon by the leading group. No sign of letting up just yet either. And they've got the likes of the Hungarian and the Portuguese men to spur them on up at the front.
Yeah, and it looks like the chasers have actually made some inroads. They are now sitting 18 seconds back. Swiss athlete Antoine Lahoud leading the chasers through there with Sis Hucher of Belgium, Oliver Conway, Eric Berling Grande of Norway as well, Jan Semler of Germany.
Yeah, they may just need a word up at the front, I imagine, to let them know that that gap's falling. Maybe some might fancy just going out on their own slightly and seeing if they can work as a smaller group up at the front to add to an advantage over that chase group.
Yeah, because if they keep that time gap to below 20 seconds, it does still put the likes of Vanison in striking distance of the podium. Might not necessarily put him in a position to win the race, but it does put him in a position with his run pedigree with the podium in sight. Batista and Sarah are standout runners in this front group.
Yeah, it'd be hard to see Vanison running down the Portuguese or the French athlete with a 20-second difference, plus whatever happens in transition. Could still be easily make up another 5 seconds or so, and suddenly 15, 12-second gap. Then you start thinking, well, if Vanison has a really good day, there might be a chance. The eternal optimist in me would say that that would be a possibility. There might be the touch of the realist in some of these triathletes that would beg to differ.
So, Hilly Besson, Martin Kropko, Sarah Gary, Jean-Nuna Batista, David Lang, Derry McCluskey, Gregor Rasva, Nicolaisen, and De Castro Catavilla. Those are our lead 9 athletes.
I bet they all went through that turn just a touch slower than previous after seeing what happened to Alex Robin the last time they went through there, down that narrow right-hand turn, down onto the avenue that takes them back to the seafront.
That would have rattled them a bit. Got 1 lap left on this bike and they'll just all want to stay out of trouble. There's only 5Ks left once they head through this transition area.
Once we get the wheelie bins out of the way as well out there on the course, don't need any of those getting in the way of these athletes. Don't need to turn this into an assault course, but you can see that gap is coming down as the chase pack really are chasing down now, and could end up being by the end of this final lap on the bike that maybe, just maybe, we've got a rather large group starting to form. And there are a few that have gone off the front of the chase group and made it their initiative to run down this top 9.
Yeah, that's Oliver Conway of Great Britain and the Belgian athlete Heich of Belgium. Semler as well, Zalan Trangelnagi. So that group now swelling to nearly 20 athletes.
And probably the last thing that Jean-Nuna Batista wanted to see is even the struggling Finlay Oliver has been able to just about stay in contention and join up with the leading group that does swell to around about 20 or so, separated by 9 seconds roughly.
Yeah, you can see now the group has come together.
The American Vanison will be licking his lips to have seen what's happened just in the last half lap or so, because now as well, those that have made the hard going to catch up with those at the front, they have a whole lap now potentially to rest up a little and enjoy the fruits of their labours, get carried along by those up at the front as well.
Yeah.
When everybody starts thinking about jockeying for position and working out their best position to be on the road in terms of when they come into transition, how just to avoid any potential pitfalls again in the last few turns of this technical bike course.
Alex Robin finds himself now back in that group. We also have Oliver Conway. Did a lot of work to get into that front group. I'm told he's in great shape, based in Nottingham. Won the trial race for this Junior World Championships. Had a 4th in Tizivaras at the European Cup there in the junior race, and a 3rd in Ulstein at that European Junior Cup. So he's also one of those athletes with an outside shot of the podium.
Yeah, and Semler leading them up the hill where he was, and now once again he's relinquished his opportunity at the front, allowing others to take their turn. See how much that group has to slow down at that turn compared to how the front 7 to 9 athletes were going through there.
That's probably why Oliver keeps dangling off the back there.
Doesn't quite have to hit the brakes, so to speak, but certainly when you're at the rear of the group, you have to be a touch more careful about getting too close to any of the others. Top 20 now working their way through. They've got a minute gap over everybody else. So the top 20 at least have been able to establish themselves, but there will certainly be some in that group out there on the bike that will have wished that this was whittled down to maybe 5 or so out at the front.
Spaniard Hector Tulsa Garcia, one of those athletes who has joined the group from that chase pack. Also a strong contender, was 4th at the European Sprint Junior Championships recently, which was won by Batista, as we know, and Serra was 2nd in that event, so he's in good shape at the moment too. So one to watch, and particularly, like we mentioned, that home soil advantage. So I think we're in for a cracking race come this 5K run.
Yeah, it's a beautiful way to sign off the afternoon here in Torremolinos. Get to around about 6 o'clock in the evening, not too far off sunset in these parts of the world. There's still 5 kilometers on foot to be done though for these young men. There is still a Junior World Championship to be fought for before the sun goes down. We hope not blood, particularly in the case of Alex Robin, but certainly sweat and potentially tears still to come on the streets in Spain.
Yes, the athletes probably now thinking about the run. You can see the pace has totally gone down.
And this is where it starts to tighten up. They'll make a fairly gentle right turn before a sharp right turn that almost doubles them back on themselves. Then there'll be another 180-degree turn before the narrow right turn down back onto the La Riviera Avenue and then back to the coast, so they can almost smell the finish of this bike ride. But you're absolutely right, Gillian, the pace has dropped off massively in this group. There's no reason for them to overexert themselves at this point. No one's looking for that separation between the rest. They probably know they've got a sizable margin between them and the chasing group behind that's still around about 1 minute and 10 seconds separating Finley Oliver and Osvaldo Derro Zuniga Fierro of Mexico.
Yeah, and pretty much all of our pre-race favorites in this group now as well.
Certainly good for some, maybe not so for others, that fact. João Nuno Batista right up at the front, 2nd, leading them through this 180-degree long corner that sends them back down the road. And I think they call it in other sports squeaky bum time about to show up here in terms of the last right-hand corner where it will all funnel in. Nobody wants to be getting too wide. You see Kropko's had to drop back as well at the rear of this group. They are all about getting through this right-hand turn safely, and some already thinking about getting prepared for transition. Feet out of the saddle, out of the shoes, sorry, for Zhang.
Yeah, it will be a really congested transition. 20 of them coming into that transition together at once.
They're all through. Perhaps the most difficult turn remaining. And now let the jockeying for position commence. Another right-hand turn before they get out on the front, but that's not stopped people already preparing for what's to come. And if they weren't thinking potentially about the run already, many are. Look at Kropko, just an adjustment to the right shoe to loosen things up. Same happening as well with the Belgian Sis Huyger. Finley Oliver just happy in his most frequented spot, just at the rear of this group.
Navigated that last corner safely.
Everybody round, and it's not long on this bike that they have from here to making that, again, a tight right-hander that goes into the blue carpet. Again, it's about getting everybody through safely, and they're almost having to stop at a standstill as they navigate that last part of the course, and some off the bike very early indeed before they go into transition. Things are going to get busy very quickly in this point. Everybody trying to be as smooth as possible. Batista going through towards the front. Kropko up there as well. The Spaniard, Cativiela, is out in the lead and out in front. In fact, excuse me, it's Hector Tolsa Garcia who is leading them out of transition, joined by Nils Serrakeri, Antoine Lehoux, the Swiss athlete, Achille Besson. Alex Robin has recovered from his fall and got himself right up at the front. Alain Trongol-Nagy, the sixth man out of transition. João Nuno Batista, seventh. And this is all going to play out on the very fast 5-kilometer run. And with so many athletes out there, this could be a very fast run indeed. But it's the Spaniard Hector Tolsa Garcia that is making the early going.
Yeah, and we mentioned just a few minutes ago about that hometown advantage. He's pretty much doing what his countrymen in the under-23 did, taking this run out really aggressively. He'll be having those other athletes all hunting him down. Fourth at that European Sprint Champ, so really strong result there.
Yeah, second at the European Junior Cup as well in Chisinau back in July, and a very strong spell last year in Junior Cup outings. Plenty of podiums and top 10 finishes to his name. Hector Tolsa Garcia looking to stride out from the front.
Being hunted down by the two Frenchmen and Batista.
The sharks are in the water and they smell blood on the beachfront in Andalusia. Done more so has their nose twitching and hoping for a mistake than perhaps the man that you see just on the rear of the two Frenchmen in the green and red, Batista.
Looking fairly comfortable, just tucked behind the two Frenchmen at the moment. Letting them do the work. Nils Serra, second in Hamburg at the Junior World Championships last year, will be wanting to go one better against that man just sitting on his shoulder. Kropko now coming up to Batista.
The silent killer almost there, Kropko, just creeping into the corner of the screen. They're still all looking at this man though, Garcia. Tolsa Garcia is way out down in front down the road. Interesting to see how that gap starts to change over what is going to be a very fast run indeed. There's a big long line of those waiting to try and make a push and a pounce at him, but at the moment they're just seeing the rear of the Spaniard.
He's got a sizable gap. Interesting to see if he's gone out too hard or if he's able to maintain this pace. It looks really comfortable at the moment.
We saw David Cantero doing exactly this, as you said, yesterday. And there's a decent gap that he's created for himself. It's not turning into an unassailable lead just yet. So we can see them coming through into transition once again. At the end of this bike ride, it was all very clustered and grouped indeed, and it got almost down to a snail's pace. You can see how early some are getting off the bike there, just in the background, because you might as well walk when you're just trundling along like that. Everyone trying to be as quick as possible through transition and get out onto the run.
Yeah, so 5 seconds the gap from Tolsa Garcia to Martin Kropko.
The Hungarian leading the charge to chase down the Spaniard.
Along with the likes of Serrakeri, Batista, Besson, Lang, Vanassen as well up there now. Conway just sitting a second or so back, and Hungary's Alain Trongol-Nagy as well, just off the back of those chasers.
Oliver Conway has that 10-second penalty, a helmet violation though, to his name, the British athlete, so that's going to drop him down the order. The charge is on behind this man. Some trying to keep up with him on the sideline. No one can keep up with him in terms of on the racetrack, only except our Moto Cam, although some are starting to make up the ground now, and there's a surge from those behind. And has Hector Tosa Garcia gone a touch too early? You can see others being encouraged to join the fight up at the front. And the Spaniard, who has tried to eke this out himself early on the road, may just be running into a bit of a speed bump when it comes to the 8 other athletes that are posing a threat behind him. Oliver Conway just dropping off the lead 9 or so. It's turning into an 8. Batista tucked in behind a few, biding his time. They're all on the chase, though, for the man in the bright yellow and almost pink out in front.
Yeah, almost upon him now. Probably 2 seconds or so. Vanison now, I think, leading the charge. Yeah, Vanison now putting a strong surge in there. Wants to get right up onto Tulsa. Kropko on the left of the screen as well, running really strong. 2 Frenchmen as well tucked in there. Sarah Gary and Besson. David Lang of Luxembourg as well. He's also tucked in there. And the Hungarian, Zalan Prangalnagi. I think he's in that group. No, he's dropped off. Apologies.
Vanison takes the lead. Hector Tulsa Garcia just couldn't maintain the distance. But it's no surprise to see the American rallying the troops and driving them on. And Vanison now looking to take a commanding position out in front. Nils Serakeri sitting just off him. Batista there as well. I don't want to say we predicted it, but that is top 3 that we certainly had our eyes on today. And they are positioning themselves towards the end of this first lap of the run into the podium positions and getting ready for the fight that will continue over the next 2.5 kilometers or so. Don't count out anybody else, though, because Hector Tosa Garcia is just settled in behind those 3 and is sitting right with them. You've also got Kropko right in the hunt too, who looks like he's going strong. And this is where the tight streets here in Torremolinos start to play their part as well. It's difficult to be more than 2 wide out there, particularly if you're trying to find space to overtake.
I think we have 7 athletes in that group.
Yeah, we've just lost Ellen Turungal-Nagy, who's dropped off the other Hungarian, Oliver Conway, as well, just falling 5 seconds adrift of the leaders, but the top 7 separated by a mere second.
Have Lang in there as well, who we haven't mentioned much. He was 12th in Hamburg, 6th in Montreal, so having a great, strong performance here today at this Junior World Champs. Vanison, Batista and Sarah Gary all have medals from previous World Championships. Batista, that gold. Vanison, the bronze back in Montreal. He was 6th in Hamburg last year. Gary, the silver medal from last year.
Yeah, interesting, Vanison relinquishing the lead just for a moment there before deciding actually he wants to be the one out in front. Maybe on the way back when the wind is slightly more in your face, it would be preferable to hang off one of the leaders, but not right now for the American. Kropko taking on some water.
Yeah, and Vanison said before the race, this is his last Junior World Championships. He really wants to go out with a bang. He'll move into the under-23 ranks next year. Has already started racing quite strongly on the elite circuit, but really wants to take this title here today.
Batista making a charge just up the inside. Just want to see where athletes are trying to position themselves, because Batista in that position is going to find it difficult to make a push because he's got 2 athletes on his right shoulder and there's not really much room on the inside to try and make a dart up the inside on Vanison. There's a bit of clear space for the moment, but I doubt that the American's going to allow that to happen, as Kropko now making a push and putting himself in front, and Kropko starting to try and up the pace a little as they make their way down towards the 180-degree turn. A little look over the shoulder to see if everybody else is coming with him, and unfortunately for the Hungarian, that's exactly what they're doing.
Yeah, interesting. Quite a few of them all having a little glance over their shoulder there, just trying to see how big the group is, you know, how many of them are left there, are they still in medal contention?
I think for some it will be a group that's slightly too large for their own comfort. Kropko trying to look comfortable out at the front though. He's making that push and has now got himself fully in front of Vanessant and leading them through. Can easily go too early, can easily do too much as they get set to make that turn.
And you could see it had just gone to single file there, so pace had obviously gone up, a little bit of a surge perhaps by Kropko. These are some previous shots of earlier on in the race.
Yeah, Hector Tulsa Garcia was the one that was trying to push that tempo that Kropko is now doing the same at a similar sort of position out there on the run. But you can even see now Kropko is struggling to maintain that level of pace. Vanessant still up alongside him. The American fighting back with a rebuttal of his own that will try and just eke away at the energy levels of the Hungarian. This is how it played out on the bike. This is how the lead group were trying to push themselves away from the rest of the throng that was able to pick them up and catch them up. And this now is what we're seeing in terms of a battle at the front between 7 athletes. There can only be 3 spots on a podium, and they're fast out of that last 180-degree turn, last quarter of this run to go. Half a lap with Vanessant leading them through, edging Nils Sergeri and Martin Kropko and Achille Besson, excuse me. And the Frenchmen are now making the surge. Besson leading them. Vanessant trying to stay with this too. But it's Nils Sergeri and Achille Besson that are driving the tempo up at the front. Batista doing his best to try and stick with them, but as you say, Gillian, they're strung out now in single file, and that's because the French pairing are really trying to push the tempo. Batista now looking for space up the inside for maybe coming back and getting with them, but he seems to be dropping away, the Portuguese athlete, slightly, as Nils Sergeri now fancies his chances. Vanessant trying to go with him and stay on that right shoulder of the Frenchman, and that's what he'll do. And the 3 at the front are the ones working the hardest right now, as Besson maybe starting to drop back into the clutches of those behind slightly, as Vanessant now puts himself in the lead. The number of lead changes on this run is up to about 4 or 5 already at this point, and there's still 3, 4, maybe 5 athletes right in the hunt for top spots still. Do not count out Hector Tulsa Garcia, who's still lurking in the background, the Spaniard, if he's got something left to try and make a push on these front 3. But right now, Rhys Vanessant, the American, is leading them through.
Yeah, game of cat and mouse here. Vanessant really surging, putting the pressure on. Sergeri able to go with him. The other French athlete, Besson, able to go with him. Then we have a gap.
That gap is opening up as Hector Tulsa Garcia and Batista just unable to stay with this magnificent trio that are leading the charge. A trident of junior triathlon powerhouses, but who will have the longer point right at the end in terms of the first to break the finishing tape on the blue carpet. The added pressure of wearing that number 1 for the American. It doesn't look like pressure right now. The pressure is all coming from Nils Sergeri, that's on his right shoulder and trying to match him stride for stride, and you can see Vanessant's tempo just upping again, but you have to say that the Frenchman behind him is making it look fairly comfortable to stay with him.
Yeah, both of these 2 phenomenal runners. They've both put down really strong 5K performances recently. A 13:55 Sergeri, Vanessant a 14:10. Who's got it in the tank?
Besson is gone. These 2 are the 2 fighting it out for gold here. They're just going past the para-triathlon transition area. There's a few more meters and then the blue carpet looms on the left. But will it be red, white and blue of the USA or blue, white and red of France stood atop the podium in this potential grandstand finish? And they're going now. It's the Frenchman who's making the charge. How much gas is left in that tank? Nils Sergeri is striding out and sprinting for home early And is there a reaction from Vanderson at all? It doesn't look like it right now as they make that final left-hand turn and onto the blue carpet. The American's going to need something super special indeed to try and change the outcome of this one, because it's going to be the Frenchman, Nils Serrageri, who's going to charge it down towards the tape and look over the shoulder. He can't afford to let up just yet. Vanderson's still coming and still coming, but it is not going to be enough from the American as the Frenchman takes gold in the Junior World Championships ahead of the American. And of course, another Frenchman's going to make up the podium, as we've seen so often today. Team France have been superb so far in Torremolinos, and it's another 2 medals to add to their tally here at the Junior World Championships, with Nils Serrageri taking first, Achille Besson taking third, and Ries Vanderson, the meat in the French sandwich in the middle. The American will take the silver. A touch too much in the end for João Nuno Batista. Martin Kropko 7th and 6th respectively. Hector Tolsa Garcia fought it out right till the end, but the Spaniard finds a top 5 spot. And David Lang, the man from Luxembourg, taking a perhaps unlikely 4th place finish. But another grandstand finish, as the juniors have shown us perhaps some of the best of the action so far this weekend here this afternoon.
Absolutely epic finish again in this junior racing. We've been treated to 2 fantastic races. See just Andreas Nikolaisen rounding out the top 10. Kangol Nagy finishing 11th place. Le Haut of Switzerland 12th. McCluskey 13th, and his countryman Alex Robin recovering from that crash to finish in 14th.
Yeah, it's a superb finish eventually by Alex Robin, as you say. Could have easily ended up being completely scuppered his race after coming off the bike, but able to pick himself up, get back in the driving seat, back in the saddle, catch up with that lead group once again. But no one was catching up with this man after that just last gasp push. He knew he wanted to create some separation before that final turn, because you saw the way that Vanderson started to come back as well on that final stretch or so. He has a look to see if anybody's behind him, and I just wonder if Vanderson was looking to think, if I go and give everything and end up falling short, I'm not going to be caught by anybody else. And he decided to give it both barrels right at the end. And I tell you what, he's only a few strides away. Let's catch up with the victor, Nils Serrageri.
Nils, you did it. Nils, hang on. You are Junior World Champion. What a race, what a moment.
Yeah, I don't realize yet. I'm so happy. It was very hard to run. I had a stomach issue, and it was so hard to run. I was good on the bike, but yeah, when the run began, I was not very good. And after the first lap, I thought that I was better. And I began to dream about it. And when I saw that everybody was dropping, I tell me, what the fuck? Why is everybody is dropping? I'm still good. And after, Ries Vanderson, he increased the pace very hard on the last K, and I just tried to be focused on him and to didn't think about everything. And and after, yes, I just pushed all I had left at the end, and I'm so happy.
Apologies for the language in there, but when you've got a group of young men lining up like that on the start list, so much talent out there, to boil down to the 7 of you and to come out on top, just take us through that last kilometre and what was going through the head.
Yeah.
Take us through the last kilometre of the...
Yeah, the last kilometre, it was... I was just thinking about my last race, where I did above the same thing at the end, just keep very hard till the end. And today I didn't realize when I crossed the line I'm so happy.
And the team with you here that has helped to get you to this point, to get you on top of the podium. Tell us about the team that's behind this performance.
Yeah, the team is very, very nice. I'm very happy to share the podium with Achille Besson. He's so happy. And it's amazing. And the girls, I saw that before the race, I was very focused, but I saw that the girl, they Amber won, and Leah is third. So yeah, it's amazing. I'm so happy.
I think we're going to have to let you go and enjoy the moment. Congratulations, well done.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you.
Ries, look disappointed, but you played a huge part in a monumental finish there. You must have enjoyed it.
Yeah, I mean, I love racing, especially with guys like this. I mean, that's why I do the sport, to be in moments like this. But, I mean, second really, really hurts. I've been wanting this all year, but, I mean, when you got Niels, such a great athlete that beat you, I mean, it's bittersweet now, but I'm going to be so happy when this really sets in because, I mean, this is just probably the biggest day in my career so far. But, I mean, yeah, right now it's just kind of like a stab, but...
We saw the incredible finish, but take us through the earlier stages of that race and like the amount of work where you came out of the water and the amount of work you had to do on that bike.
Yeah, I mean, the swim, I felt like I did about as good as I could have. There were some really good swimmers in the field, and I wouldn't really consider myself to be at the top of a swim field, but I came out right at the back of the first pack, and I missed it onto the bike, and I worked really, really hard the first 3 laps with the pack I was in, and I was kind of getting slingshot off the back, which just kind of exposed a weakness of mine, and that's something I really need to work on going into next year as I go into the elites. But when I finally got to the lead pack and our group did, I kind of tried to sit in, get my legs right, because I knew that last 5K was going to be so brutal.
And it was a long straight, that last straight, and there was a lot of fast guys around you, and you put the hammer down, and there was a little bit of a gap, and then you never able to let that elastic go.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like my strength is just making it really, really hard, and I think that worked. It's just when you have the guy that runs 1350 on the road, it's like you're not going to shake him, so I tried to sprint him, but I mean, he got the best of me, and all the respect to him in the world. Really, really like him, nicest guy, but yeah, I mean, I raced to my strengths and I got beat, so there's really nothing I can do about that right now.
Your last year as a junior, you're silver at the World Champs and a huge amount ahead of you, no doubt.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I look forward to hopefully having more interviews in the future.
Well done.
Thank you.
Congratulations, it was bronze here. Niels had the legs in the end, French flag flying high once again. How was the race?
Yeah, the race was really hard. It was my first World Championship, so I was just here to take experience. And a podium, 3rd place, it's just a dream.
As you hit the start line then for the first World Champs, how were the feelings? Was there nerves going on? Did you feel like you had a podium in you?
I don't know. In the swim, I was a few seconds behind the first pack, so during the transition and the first lap on the bike, I was pushing to take the first pack, and then I was pushing in the first pack to take a few seconds with the other packs. So it was hard for me the bike, and then on the run I just wanted to take my chance, so I pushed on the last lap, and the guys behind me were stronger, so yeah, I'm so happy with the results.
Conditions out there weren't helped by the wind, and it was a tough bike course. Just take us through like some of the challenges out there. There was a few guys that came down on some of the faster corners.
What?
There was a few guys came down on the corners. There were, as the wind got up, the bike got more challenging.
Yeah, but it was not all the pack, so after I just I was behind the other guys who don't have the wind in front of me, so yeah.
And when Reese put the hammer down and started to make a bit of a gap, how was the feelings? Like you just were determined to try and stay on as long as possible?
Yeah, I tried, but he was really strong, so yeah.
Well, Team France have done it again. Congratulations and enjoy the podium.
Thanks, thank you very much.
Yeah, great day for Team France then in the junior women and the junior men's taking gold. Nils Seegeri, one of those that we highlighted before the race as certainly a potential candidate to be right up there, along with Ries Vannessen and João Nuno Batista, as the athletes made their way down to the beach for the start of the men's junior world championship race. Choppier waters than we'd seen over the last couple of days. Certainly blustery winds that would make the entirety of this sprint triathlon more of a challenge than perhaps some of the athletes were hoping for, including a very busy swim indeed. There were a few that were able to really find a clear open passage out there on the waters. One of them though was João Nuno Batista in the yellow cap with the number 2 on the side of it. Portuguese athlete leading the rest of the field, and certainly had a few others joining him, particularly on the return back down to the beachfront, as the Portuguese man led them round the buoys and heading for home on the 750-metre swim. Gregor Razfer, the Estonian, right on his heels for a long time, and Martin Kropko, the Hungarian, as we certainly had an inkling he would find his feet in the water. The man who thrives at aquathlon events, just picking his own route on the way home, just away from the rest of the trail, but he would eventually come out of the water second, right up level with João Nuno Batista. Out onto the beachfront and straight across into transition. Transition that was relatively smooth for most of the athletes, albeit a long journey along the beach and across the road and down towards the bikes. There was a group of around about 4 or 5 athletes that were just away from the rest of the field, that were about 12 seconds behind. And there was a thought that maybe those 4 or 5 would be able to push some tempo, as we see some struggling down there in the transition area to find their spot. And maybe there would be a breakaway, but a group of 3 would join the leaders out there on the bike, and soon it would be a quick group of around about 10 athletes or so. After the first lap on the bike, things were not exactly congested up at the front, but there was a clear gulf between the top 9 and the rest of the field. Others would start to work that pack in behind, particularly after the fall of Alex Robin, which was a nasty tumble at one of the tighter corners out there on the bike circuit. Robin had been one of those up towards the front in that group of 9 who've been looking to push a bit of the tempo. 2 of the Brits up there with Darrow McCluskey, his fellow countryman, trying to eke out the advantage, but the fall in the end for the Brit Robin would send him back into the clutches of this chasing group. Rhys Vanassen, part of those on the chase. And by the midway point, we wondered if the chasing group would be able to find them. There'd be about a 24-second gap between the chasers and the leaders. But as we got towards the end of the 3rd lap, this is when things started to change and started to develop. And rather quickly, 9 became about 24 or so athletes, as those at the front of the chasing group did enough to drag everybody else with them. And we knew it was going to be a helter-skelter moment coming into transition, finding space, finding time, and getting out onto the run as quickly as possible. There's no room for error either on a very fast run course, the flat up and down the beach, just 5 kilometers, and every second counting in terms of space and an advantage. And the home fans were delighted to see Hector Tolsa Garcia, the first out of transition. He tried to do what David Cantero did yesterday and eke out an early advantage and maintain it for as long as he could on the run. Cantero took it all the way to a solo finish for gold in the under-23 Men's Junior Championships. Unfortunately, Hector Tolsa Garcia unable to replicate the form of his fellow countryman. Unlike this French pair of Nils Serra-Guerri and Michiel Besson, along with Batista, who were able to catch up with the Spaniard fairly quickly in the end. This group of 3 or 4 athletes would turn into a magnificent 7 that would provide plenty of entertainment. You have to credit as well Martin Kropko of Hungary, who looked like he was one of the ones that was really upping the ante out there on the run to try and reel in the Spaniard as quickly as possible. By the end of the first lap, it was Rhys Vanassen who put himself in the equation to lead them through out onto the final 2.5 kilometers on the course. Oliver Conway trying his best to stay with the lead 7. They would assert themselves, and it was largely in part to the push of Kropko, who made a surge just down this back straight towards the 180-degree turn back for home. And this is when things got a little busier. The front 3, 2 Frenchmen and an American, leading the way towards the finish. And you thought Vanassen was striding out. We did note that Nils Sergeri looked very comfortable behind him. And when this burst came, there was very little in terms of a reply from Vanassen. The French have found their feet and found their footing and dug them firmly into the ground, along with the French flag here in Torremolinos, to assert their dominance on the Junior World Championships. And that young man, he will have no better feeling, I'm sure, this year than a World Championship gold. Vanassen settling for second in the end. There is still more to come from the American. Besson wrapping out the podium. Team France are sticking around to take in the celebrations. We'll see more sights like this later on this weekend. Of course, the junior and the under-23 relays, the para relays as well. Gillian, you'll be taking us through some of that action over the next few days. The elites as well. There's so much more to come. And I think the town of Torremolinos just needs a break for a second to be able to take a breather after everything that's happened over the last 2 days, with some thrilling finishes, of course, in the women's under-23 championships yesterday. We've had the drama of 2 fantastic junior world championships today, and all of the para triathlon as well. Everybody just needs 24 hours of rest and relaxation before we get back down to business again, really.
Yeah, get into those chiringuitos, have a cava or a sangria, relax, recalibrate, and yeah, enjoy some more excitement tomorrow. But yeah, it's been a fantastic spectacle thus far. 2 really exciting junior races, and the future's really bright for triathlon, particularly with regards to the French athletes, 1st and 3rd in both the women's junior events and the men's junior events. So can't fault the French Federation.
Yeah, there'll be some other federations around the world that'll be looking at the performances of the French right now and going, we want a bit of that. We need to try and reclaim some glory for ourselves at this point. The medal ceremony is about to get underway. That young man won't be involved in it, unfortunately. João Nuno Batista. There is a lot more to come, though, from the young Portuguese athlete. He will be someone that will be gracing triathlonlive.tv a fair few more times in his future, I'm sure. But it will be the French national anthem ringing out once again on the podium celebrations this evening here in Torremolinos. Brought you almost 8 hours of World Triathlon TV today. All of it has been of the highest order, and it has been absolutely awesome to finish the day's action as the sun starts to set here with 2 exhilarating finishes. And this is a young man that maybe didn't see a podium coming his way at the start of today, but just goes to show that particularly when you get into these junior races and these under-23 races, you never really know where the victors are going to come from. I think today's action has been a testament to that. But Monsieur Besson will stand on the 3rd place of the podium with a very warm heart. I certainly know that the future could potentially be very bright for him as well on the World Triathlon stage. Nothing better than the unexpected medal, perhaps, Gillian?
Yeah, I would say so. It's always nice to have, a bit of surprise. And we did mention, there were a few standouts podium potential athletes on the start list today, but we're also mindful of the fact that we might be in for a few surprises and fireworks, which is quite often the case at this junior level.
Frustration for the American, to say the least. Vanassen will take that second spot on the podium. He wanted first so much, but you can't always get what you want. If you try sometimes, you might find you get what you need. He certainly needed a silver medal at least to come away with a smile this afternoon in Torremolinos. Niels Geri will take the top step. Gold for France again. I think it's fair to say 2024 in World Triathlon is the year of Team France. Not an understatement by any stretch of the imagination. We will have the French national anthem. These young men may be a bit too young for the champagne celebrations. I'm sure someone will be able to find them a sneaky glass of the good stuff, though, come this evening. They will have their chance to now take in the rest of the weekend's action, and certainly it's action that's not to be missed with the elite women coming up tomorrow afternoon, and then Sunday sees a whole host of the, of course, under-23 and junior relays, the para-relays as well, and the elite men capping it all off on Sunday evening as the sun starts to set here in Torremolinos. As the sun starts to set on our day here in Torremolinos, it has been an action-packed Friday. Thursday and Friday have set the stage of what is to come. The elites will have to do an almighty job to better some of the finishes that we've seen today. But that doesn't mean you should turn away from it. There's plenty of action still to come here from the coastline in Spain. From us, though, this Friday, thank you so much for joining us. And come back over the next couple of days for more here on triathlonlive.tv. Until then, though, it's goodbye for now.